ברוכים הבאים לפודקאסט סודות מחדר המשא ומתן. שמי רונה גינת, עורכת דין, מגשרת, מרצה ומנחה. היום אני מאוד מתרגשת לארח את האורח הראשון שלי בפודקאסט, ואני עוד יותר מתרגשת מאחר שזהו הפרק הראשון שאני מקליטה באנגלית, ואני מאוד מתרגשת ושמחה לראיין היום את מר רחים סאמג'י, שהוא בעצם המנכ"ל והמייסד של חברת ADR ODR International, שאני גאה להיות הנציגה שלה כבר למעלה מארבע שנים. So hello and welcome to my podcast, Secrets from the Negotiation Room. My name is Rona Ginat. I'm an advocate, a mediator, and a lecturer, and I'm located in Israel. And I'm really super proud and excited to have here today my colleague and my best friend and my very good friend, Mr. Rahim Shamji. Hello, Rahim.
Hi, Rona. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you so much for coming today to my podcast. I'm so happy to interview you, and I'm sure we will have a very fascinating chapter. So thank you again. I'd be really happy if we can start and just, tell us more about yourself and your company, ADR ODR International, that I'm also really proud to be its representative in Israel.
Thank you, Rona. So really, my story's a little bit basic in the sense that I read law and I went to practice as a barrister. And for those of you that don't know what a barrister is, it's a courtroom advocate. And in England and Wales, we get to wear wigs and gowns and dress up like we were in the 15th century and argue cases in front of judges and juries. And I had a really interesting criminal practice at the very beginning of my career, and I really enjoyed that. And I think I was successful in that I loved storytelling. And so barristers tell stories to juries about what happened, what didn't happen. And I'm a good storyteller, so it worked well. I was able to connect with that jury system. But around 2005 and 6, I discovered mediation and negotiation, and then a bit of arbitration, and that changed my life completely. And so I left the bar full time, and I discovered that I wanted to be a little bit of an academic, as well as pursue my knowledge, my quest for new knowledge and training in how to be a better mediator, negotiator, etc. And so that led to 2016, where I set up ADR ODR International. Now, ADR ODR International, as the letters say, alternative dispute resolution and online dispute resolution. So going back to 2016, the days before we had Zoom, the only video platform that we had was Skype, if you remember the good old days of Skype.
Yeah, definitely.
And I could see that there was going to be a seismic change in technology. I could see that was coming. What my colleagues and my fraternity of mediators in the UK couldn't see is how we would make that transition. So when I set up ADR ODR International, it was critical that the title of the company had ODR in it. So everybody that works with me and around me knows that ADR is important, but the future is ODR as well, and this hybrid. And the word international became very, very important because although the company was first registered in the UK, we are now in 45 countries, and we don't pretend that the West or the English or any legal system or culture has the monopoly of knowledge on ADR. Right? In fact, we might argue that ADR actually is an Eastern philosophy refined in the West recently and then recirculated But the idea of being international is you are global, but local. And having local representatives speaking local languages in the local cultural domain is critical for our success. So we do not export and we do not import knowledge. We share knowledge, which can be then, what works in London or New York may not work in Nairobi or Tel Aviv or Dubai. No problem. But take the principles and then manifest them into your own jurisdiction. That's the principle of the international. I think that was important. So, yeah.
I remember meeting you, I think, first time at the ICC competition in Paris, which I took students from Bar-Ilan University, and I met you. You were sponsoring the competition, and I remember just, asking about your company and asking if you have, I think you had then like 25 countries. And I asked you, so do you have a representative in Israel? And you said no. So, and that was it. Like, this was our journey. And since then, I have gotten to know your activity. And I think one of the most very special thing that I see in your company, maybe in relation to other international companies, is your ability to connect with anyone from any culture, from any country. And it's not just the connection, it's the communication and the joyful, you know how to bring everybody to the same room. And for me, this is the trips that I had to Dubai, to your competitions that you held with students, was an opportunity to meet people that I guess I would never meet in my life. So just, I'm really, impressed by that, and will be really happy to ask you, what do you think is where does it come from, your ability to do that, and what have you learned from this experience? Because it's really, really, it's really, really wide and really impressive from my perspective.
Very, very kind of you to say all those wonderful things, and thank you for that. Let me start by saying, this is not like a thank you speech when I won an award, but I owe a lot of this connectivity and communication to my parents. So they had this ability that when I was growing up, and they were refugees effectively to the UK. They'd been kicked out of their homeland in Uganda in East Africa, 1972. And we had neighbors that were Irish and English and from other parts of the world. And what this taught me is that even though we all came from different parts of the world, there was much more that connected us than divided us. And what connected us in that immediate home that I grew up in was community of neighbors. We if you had a problem at home, by the time you called your family who were 10 miles away or 5 miles away, your neighbor would be there in 1 minute, and vice versa. So you start from a very embryonic idea that my childhood was very much influenced by, we have to find ways to connect with people that we don't know because we are connected by location. So that was the first understanding. As I grew up, went to a great university where people from all over the world, I remember my first week at university, and what blew me away was people from every country in the world suddenly studying law together. So we were different people. We ate different foods. We spoke different languages. And the funny thing was, when I went to university, maybe Ron, a bit like you, I'm older. We didn't have mobile phones to use the payphone in the university. And the payphone all day there'd be somebody talking in different languages. There was Arabic, there was Hebrew, there was Spanish, there was Italian, there was Swahili, there was Mandarin, because, and you heard it being spoken on the floor because the payphone was in the middle of the floor. So everybody would speak a different language. So this also, you realize that my connection is we're all here to study law and improve our understanding of law, but from different cultures. Fast forward that to 2016, and my community, my faith, my understanding of the world is about pluralism. ADR ODR International is designed on the principle of pluralism, that we can be different, but we can not just be tolerant, but we take an extra step in understanding what makes you different. And it's okay to be different as long as I respect it and you respect my difference. You know,
Yeah.
I remember going to...
Yes. You remember?
No, I remember going to university, and I met people that were vegetarian, that were vegan, that didn't believe in the same religious belief that I had. And that was okay, but to understand why and to respect that there was a different way of life. But still, what binds us is this common humanity, right? And when you look at life through that lens, that's what ADR ODR tries to do. What you do as a negotiator mediator and what I do as a negotiator mediator, the approach we use might be a little bit different. But the goal is peacemaking. The goal is to create people's lives, whether it's the business transaction, whether it's personal transactions, intimate transactions between a couple, or whether it's to do with workplace. At some point, you create peace. So we're bound by the idea of being a peacemaker. And I believe that we focus sometimes too much on differences rather than commonalities. And I don't bring people into the team that don't understand that.
Yeah, I think also this ability of the connectivity and the, you know, such a wide cultural acceptance and respect, this is such an important tool for international negotiators, because it's the key. It's the respect, it's the acceptance, it's knowing how to listen and see what is common and look for the common. So I think this is maybe, when we talk about international negotiation, one of the most important keys. And I really see it in you, and this is why I just want to go to my next question, that is, how did you find this ability of yours in maybe, if you can think of a very complicated negotiations that you did, or during, you know, your company or in your life, and maybe you can share with us a story that you have.
Yeah, I can share a couple of very interesting stories. I think this ability starts with certain principles when you approach international. The word international is a little bit heavy, but so we are talking about mediations or negotiations where it's a cross-cultural environment, where not everybody is from that same language, background, culture, location, right? So that requires, there are two types of citizens, Rona, in the world. There are domestic citizens and there are international citizens. Both require a different skill set. Yeah. So not one is not better than the other. So there are people who are excellent at what they do, but they live in a domestic idea. They're not pan, European, pan, global. They stay and they do really well there. The problem has been when those individuals who only have a domestic view of the world go internationally and they don't recognize that the other's way of doing things are different, you immediately get deadlocked. So my view has always been that entering into the international space, before I put my foot forward, I should welcome the other foot forward first. I want to understand how you see the world through your lens. And, you know, one of the skills that I know we talk about in all our training is active listening. Now, when we talk about active listening, people say, oh, body language and eye contact and, you know, all these things. And I say, well, actually, those are the superficial things that we see. The deep active listening is really understanding the other in a way that you have never thought about before. Now, I'll give you an example. I was doing a mediation between a party that had a transaction from a Texas company with a strong American profile and a company in Mumbai, India. Okay? Now, in this mediation, it was over a contract of goods that were not fit for purpose. So the American company said, these goods are not fit for purpose, right? And we want a refund. And the Indian company is saying, the goods are fit for purpose, but you've changed the standards to which you want them, okay? And the contract doesn't talk about the standards. Doesn't talk about the standards. And what we got was high context, India, low context, America, at cross purposes with each other. The American company's starting point is, I want a refund. I want a refund. You take the goods back. We are done. We are done. Very direct, literal approach. And Hofstadter, who came up with the theory of high context, low context, talks about words are very key in low context behavior. In the high context, which was the Indian culture, they kept saying, but we are not interested in the refund. We are interested in creating a relationship with you. We don't understand why you've changed the goods. And so my job became, as a mediator in this negotiation, to help each side look at the problem from each other's perspective. And in that cross-cultural moment, when I was able to connect and create trust, because without trust, we can do nothing. You create that trust, and we came out 8 hours later, not with a refund, but with a new contract that was worth 3 times the value of the original contract.
Wow.
That is how we can add value. You know, we know getting to yes and expanding the pie and all these other principles, but you see, principles need to be translated. So when we talk about this international domain, we are talking about the ability to listen and understand different perspectives and move beyond the stereotype.
Yes. Do you think that there is a difference between listening in the domestic areas and listening in the international areas? What is exactly the difference when we talk about active listening?
So in a domestic scene, if we are all from a same or similar location, language, etc., then the listening takes a different nuance, because we're not trying to convince each other about the perspective. We are trying to find a deal in a very different way. But internationally, we need to start thinking about, I have my perspective. How do I help them see my perspective, and how do I see their perspective? There are different perspectives that have brought this international place together, right? So we have a contract in the Middle East with a very big, recognizable institution. When we were entering a negotiation with them to become their partner, it took 18 months to get to a contract.
Oh, wow.
And it wasn't, they didn't once push us on numbers. And every 2-3 months, I would say to my colleague, I'd say, I don't understand why it's taking so long. They're not coming back and saying it is too expensive, or we want more revenue. Why is it taking so long? But you know what it was? It wasn't about the numbers. In that Middle East context, and you'll appreciate this as well, Rona, it's about the relationship. Is if they like you and they trust you, then the numbers are not important. They value you. They value you. And I think we are in a place where the world is globalizing, but we are really stuck between people that value the deal and people that value people.
Yeah.
We can't commoditize people. We have to get to that. People carry something much special. So your question about domestic and international, in some domestic places, the people aren't important, the deal is important. And in other places, it's people, not the deal. The problem is when we cross-culture that together, it becomes complicated.
Yeah, I am just recalling I have an international mediation I'm doing right now with an Israeli party from one side and a German company, and they were suppliers of a very big business for a long time, and now they have decided to end their connection, and they have now a very big conflict about the way that they finish their relationship. And I think that one of my I think we will get to an end soon. I'm really hopeful. But I think it's for us as mediators, helping them to negotiate with one another is to understand also the way that each side is negotiating and the different way that each party think about negotiation. And the pace, you talked about 18 months. So from one side, it's why is it going for so long? And for the other side is, I don't want to put pressure, maybe it will go, it takes the time and we need the process here. And every party thinks differently about the time, about the numbers, about the attitude, and as you said, about the whole perception of the deal. This is only numbers, this is the people that counts and the trust. And I think our role here as mediators is also in an international mediation to do this, speak about the different perspective about the negotiation from each party.
Yes, absolutely. And this is, the negotiation course that we run every year in Dubai. We spend a lot of time on cross-culture. And I think there's two big skills that every negotiator, in addition to all the basic negotiation skills that we all teach, need. One is cross-cultural understanding and the second is the ability to empathize through experiential understanding. And that's not easy because we can measure empathy in lots of questionnaires, but in the room, in the dialogue, in the understanding, how do you create a certain level of deep empathy that you understand those interests and needs that we talk about, which are not that apparent, The biggest skill in a negotiation or a mediation is what's not being said, not what is being said. And successful negotiators look for that. And when they find it, it's like finding the light. You've found an area where you can really help the parties to move forward.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. That's very interesting. And I think it helps a lot to try and really reflect and understand what are the differences between, as you said, a domestic negotiation, which the culture, the people, and an international one that you have to look much more deeply and be much more flexible about the whole process of negotiation and about the ability to go in depth to understand the other party's perspective. Yeah. Wow, thank you for that. That's I think this is really important. And maybe we can, if I can ask you really, as you know, your activity is really, really impressive, and you go and have a lots of courses all around the world. Maybe you want to tell us more about that, and maybe also talk about how do you see the future in our field in negotiation.
So I think let's take the second question first.
Yeah. Okay.
For me, if you think of the foundation of a building or a house or a block of building block, if you don't get your foundation right, everything else is going to be weak and fall down quickly. So for me, the foundation of any ADR delivery is negotiation, right? The basics of negotiation. If we get that right, we can then do mediation, we can do conciliation, early neutral evaluation, arbitration, etc. Right? Everything stands strong. But my difficulty is there's been so much focus on mediation and arbitration in their own right that we've lost the understanding that negotiation could have even prevented those from happening if we were able to negotiate properly, right? So I'm, myself and Zoe, who set up the School of Negotiation in Dubai, that's been one of the reasons we got it going, is we need to push this. So whoever does our mediation course, we tell them, now you're a mediator, you definitely need to learn about negotiation, because you've learned the process of mediation, but the fundamentals of mediation is assisted negotiation. It's you need to be able to show us how this is going to work. Right?
Yeah, definitely, because mediation is a negotiation with the help of a third party. So this is exactly, I think as mediators, we have to know negotiation. And I think our role is also to encourage the parties to negotiate between themselves before they are running to mediation, arbitration, or to courts.
And then in the second part of that question, which you asked about the courses that we do. So for us, I was in a restaurant. This is a funny story. I was in a restaurant in 2016, and I was setting up ADR ODR International. And my wife and I were having dinner. And on the wall, they had these artwork, and it said progress, progression, progressive. And I kept looking at this PPP, progress, progression, progressive. And while I was having dinner, I said to my wife, I said, those three things is what I want ADR ODR to look like. And she said, huh? And I said, we have to be very, very progressive if we are going to be relevant. Because this organization is about being dynamic. It's not saying we sell one product and come and buy forever, right? This is an evolving area. Two, if we're progressive, then the people that come with us progress. And if they progress, then you move from point A to B and C, that's progression. So that's the philosophy of how we came together, or I try to emanate that to everyone in our program. So starting with that story, we then moved to the idea that from 2016 to 2024, the end now, we had one course, which was 4 to 5 days in mediation, to now having 10 courses, arbitration, module 1, module 2, module 3, negotiation, mediation, workplace, family, 6-day program, e-learning, hybrid, all this stuff. So if you're going to evolve, you have to look at the environment you're in. And I wanted ADR ODR to be an organization of its time. A lot of ADR organizations are located in a country, and then they go and export to around the world. So we don't want to do that. We want to be in that country, as I said earlier. So 2020 comes along, and we have the pandemic. The pandemic creates an awful situation for the health of the world. You know, we lost a lot of unfortunately loved ones to this terrible pandemic. I lost members of my family as well. However, it did something like we've never seen before, which has accelerated the world to a digital idea. We were able to order food. My parents used Zoom to connect with family and online shopping, and so we moved. And because we had infrastructure like the smartphone,
you had everything already because you were ADR ODR in 2016, but a lot of people weren't aware enough of this platform. And since the coronavirus, you were like crazy because everybody they were at home and we needed to communicate. And you had all the platforms already.
And that direct impact on the profession, because no longer could you be a lawyer and a mediator or a lawyer and an arbitrator. You had to be all of them and understand them digitally. And then the latest crazy thing is AI and generative AI and chat GPT. So in 2020, at the end of that first year of the pandemic, I trademarked the letters DDRS, Digital Dispute Resolution Specialist. That's the new title we're saying everyone needs. So we say you come to ADR ODR, you do mediation, negotiation, arbitration, and ODR AI courses. You do those 4, you become a DDRS. Because we are not just looking at today, we're looking at the next 10 years. And anybody who's in our profession and not understanding the digital impact of AI is redundant in 5 years. There's a very simple word in English, Rona, but it's got devastating consequences. If you are relevant, you're going to be okay. But if you become irrelevant, it's not worth having. And how many things have become irrelevant in our life, right? When you went on holiday 15, 20 years ago, you'd buy a camera, you have film in the camera, and we were shooting. And if you told Kodak and all these big companies that in 20 years there'll be digital photographs, they would laugh at you. Kodak, irrelevant. Cameras, irrelevant. You have a phone that can take amazing photographs. So
what do you think that will happen in our world, negotiation, mediation, with the AI? What will happen in 5 years from now, or even 2 years from now?
So look, I think there's going to be a massive change in the world of mediation, negotiation, and arbitration. I don't advocate, I'm not a fan of robot mediators, robot negotiators, robot arbitrators. I'm not there. Maybe my children will be, right? Because they'll grow up in a totally different generation, and yours as well. But where I am now is, if you don't know how to operate technology to make you more efficient and smarter, so that organizing caseloads, organizing the case, preparing, right? So you were in Dubai with us 2 weeks ago, right? We had Colin Rule speak to us, the godfather of ODR, about arbitration. Namita Shah, who was there, runs Presolve 360 in India, one of the largest online platforms. Algorithms, efficiency, preparing parties. So you and I, when we mediate, we prepare to mediate. But why don't the parties prepare to mediate? AI can help them. AI can ask them a series of questions to make sure that they understand their interest and their needs. You know, we spend hours trying to get to the interest and needs. You're going to find parties getting there. So I see two things. One, I see if you don't understand technology, you're going to struggle a lot. Two, I see that mediations become shorter in nature and negotiations. So in the UK, we have this 8-hour model where you take a couple of hours in the morning to explore and dig deeper and understand the case. I think parties come now with AI helping them to understand their interests and needs in the first
Much
5
faster.
minutes.
Yeah. So I think the conclusion here is just, learn and be all the time, learn the new technology, know how to use them and use them. You have to, make yourself to do that, because after that, you will become irrelevant.
Right. So a lot of people my age in their late 40s who are colleagues of mine around the world have a fear of technology. Fear. There's a fear. And I keep saying to them, what are you scared of? There's nothing to be scared of, right? In fact, the opposite is if you embrace it, you will see how much it will support you. But, so one of the courses we offer is a AI ODR course for beginners. Come and understand what this world does, how basic things, how you can use ChatGPT, how you can use Zoom properly for your mediations. Mm-hmm. And there are two things in the digital world that I wanted to share with you. There are two skills that the generation of our children, Rona, already have, I think, but that you and I are getting used to. And the first is called a digital vocabulary. A digital vocabulary. Knowing what these things mean, knowing what Gen AI means, knowing what AI really is, knowing how machine learning and LLMs, if you tell a lawyer, I'm going to work on an LLM, they think you're going to work on a master's. But large language models are not to be scared of. They're not to be confused with. So the first thing is digital vocabulary. And the second thing, which I think is so critical, Rona, is digital empathy. Digital empathy. How do we create empathy online? Now, in the last 24 hours, you or I have been on WhatsApp or other messaging systems, and I'm sure you've sent a smiling face, a laughing face, a heart, a thank you, whatever, right? Those emojis.
Yeah.
That's the first step of digital empathy. A language will be used in the digital world. And I think that's going to become even bigger with those glasses that Apple and Google have created, the virtual reality glasses, etc. Abu Dhabi Court now has a AI VR court. So you put your glasses on and you are in the actual court in Abu Dhabi.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. I think also it connects with one of the biggest fears of negotiators and mediators that are afraid of technology is exactly the empathy that they feel very comfortable with when they meet person face to face. How can you transform it to the online platform? And I think the next fear is they are afraid maybe the AI will replace them as robots. And so I think this is like, if you talk about the fear of learning and embracing the technology, is a very strong 2 points of how do you do empathy in an online platform, and how do you save your career and don't get lost, don't get irrelevant.
Exactly. And that's the biggest fear, right? Is in any generation is I'm now irrelevant. And I don't think it's ever too late to connect, as long as you find people to help you connect, right? And digital poverty, they call it digital poverty in the world, where people don't have access to the internet or smartphones. Once you get past digital poverty, when you give somebody the smartphone or an iPad or a tablet, the world opens up in a way that it would never be opened up.
Yeah.
From education, from dispute resolution. And if you look at countries which were 30 years ago called third world countries and developing countries, countries like India, countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, East Africa, which were, people didn't think about. You look at the connectivity now, the internet availability, free internet in cities. We are moving in a place where we have never thought about before. And digital vocabulary, digital empathy is now part of the vocabulary every day there. Yeah. So we have a lot to learn from these countries too, on how we need to keep up, because we have a certain level of arrogance in the developed world, which we think we know.
We think we know it all. Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating, Rahim. And I really, if you have these courses that are online, maybe people that are hearing and listening this podcast can connect. So I will be happy to, if you have a link to your courses, online courses, I will be happy to put it here in the episode of the podcast. So thank you so much. I think this is a really, really important conversation. I'm really fascinated, and I'm really hopeful that also our listeners enjoyed. And maybe you have, before we maybe finalize and wrap up, you have maybe like a final message you would like to share with us, with the listeners.
So look, first of all, I wanted to congratulate you on putting this podcast together, because I think this is a sign of times that you have gone to a medium of knowledge which 10 years ago didn't exist, right? This idea that we have to talk in a different place and not have to hold a conference room. And so already you've gone digital, you're thinking about this already. And I want to congratulate you. And I want to say to you and your listeners that we are living in extraordinarily complicated times, where from peace to war to peace can happen in a blink of an eye and back. But it's down to everybody to search for peaceful solutions, and more importantly, for the next generation of young lawyers and professionals coming through to have the skills to not only make peace in the world, but make peace in their own lives. Because I'm a big believer that says, if you don't have peace within you, it's difficult for you to go and make peace in other people, right? So the digital world is here. There's never been a more important time to create a community of peacemakers in people's lives. It's already stressful living in this world where so much pressure and demand on us. And I want to thank you for inviting me to be your first English-speaking podcast. And I look forward to supporting you, and hopefully we can create more DDRS people in Israel and wider.
Amen for that. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, Rahim. And thank you for your listeners. I will just say it in Hebrew. So, תודה רבה לכם על ההקשבה. אני מקווה שנהנתם וקיבלתם ערך מהפרק הזה. ואתם כמובן מוזמנים להצטרף לניוזלטר כדי לקבל עדכונים, ולקהילה שלנו, של הפודקאסט בפייסבוק. ו-I will put Rahim's courses, אני אשים את הקורסים של רחים כאן בפודקאסט למי שמתעניין ורוצה להירשם, ואני מאוד מאוד ממליצה, באמת, רחים, you are the forefront of this digital era of negotiation, arbitration, mediation, and each time I want to learn what will be next, I'm connecting with you and learning so much from you and your colleagues and your community, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. And thanks again so much for this time that you devoted for us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah.